is brought to you by low self-esteem and self-destruction. Welcome back! If you're on my channel, chances are, I think, that you saw the video I posted a couple weeks ago called Another Crazy Uber Story. If you didn't see that video, I will attach it as a card and put it in the description below. But long story short, I had an Uber driver who within a very short ride told me many personal details of his life. I ended that story by essentially saying that because I have problems and because he was cute, I thought it was a good idea to go out with him. Against my best judgment and the best judgment of pretty much anybody I know that is at least sort of sane. I was waiting to post the story until I knew that I was never going to see this guy again, so spoiler alert, it didn't work out. So let's pick up the story where we left off. We made plans and I got ready to go out with him, and of course he canceled plans, but he had a pretty good reason. He had just gotten into a car accident, which is kind of unsettling considering he's an Uber driver, and it stressed him out so much that he had to go to an AA meeting. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, a guy canceled your date because he had to go to an AA meeting. Don't you think that's sort of a red flag? To which I say, stop being so judgmental. To me, somebody in AA isn't somebody that you should be afraid of. Somebody in AA is somebody who used to have a lot of problems and is doing a lot of work to fix themselves, so stop with your judgments. Also, I'm very desperate, but it's cool. We schedule another coffee date. He gets there a few minutes before me. He texts me and says, hey, I'm here, and I say, cool, I'll be there in a few minutes. Something that was very strange was, by the time I showed up, he already drank his coffee. And it wasn't just coffee, it was a triple shot espresso. That is a lot of caffeine in a very short amount of time. This is no longer a coffee date. This is now me drinking coffee across from a very hyper man. And while we were in line waiting for my coffee, we started talking about caffeine, and he said that he's absolutely addicted to caffeine, and I said, well, you must have sort of an addictive personality. He was like, you're telling me. The other day, I drank so much coffee so quickly that I thought I was having a heart attack and drove myself to the hospital. Now, I don't think that that is a very safe thing to do. Again, this is an Uber driver, but what do I know? So we sit down across from each other, me with my coffee, him with his empty cup, and one of the first things he says to me is, I Googled you. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I've never Googled somebody or Facebooked somebody or Instagrammed somebody before a first date, but usually we keep that on the low, or at least pretend like we didn't. It's like one of those unspoken things. I said, do you do anything other than Uber? He said, right now I just Uber, but I have a dishonorable discharge from the army and I'd rather not talk about it. He then said that driving Uber does stress him out though, because he thinks that every passenger that gets in his car is a terrorist and is going to blow him up, which I admit sounds pretty stressful. And although that is a very, very irrational fear, I think, you know what, I'm afraid of getting murdered all the time, so I get it. Then within the first 5 minutes, he proceeds to tell me every sick, dark, disgusting, disturbing part of his life. Every thought, every dream, every fear, every fantasy, every mistake, everything that he's ever experienced in this guy's life and in his mind is now out on the table. One of the first things he told me was that he was on the 40-year plan. Since we were just talking about, you know, careers, I figured this was some type of job thing or where he wanted to be in his life at 40. No, what the 40-year plan is, he said, it just means that I plan to kill myself when I'm 40. Now, I'm not making light of suicide at all. Please don't take it as that. Suicide is a really, really serious problem and 100% preventable. But there's something very different about being in this really dark, hopeless, desperate place and feeling like you have no way out except for suicide and not wanting to be 41 years old. Two, in my opinion, completely different things. This quickly turned into a conversation of when he was in college, he used to play Russian roulette. If you don't know what it is, Google it. And also he said he used to put a gun in his mouth and pull it just enough to hear the spring click, but not enough for it to fire. He said he did this for the adrenaline rush. Some people go on roller coasters, go skydiving, go bungee jumping. This guy put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger halfway. Again, I'm not making light of mental illness or suicide. I'm just letting you know where we are at this point in the date, which is again about 5 minutes in. Just a lot to say. Very quickly, this date turned into a full-blown therapy session. It lasted 2.5, 3 hours, and in that time, he did not ask me one question about me. Well, except for if I make a lot of money. This guy's just spilling his entire life on me, and instead of leaving, I sat very interested. Like, I wanted to be there. I didn't want to leave because honestly, I was just fascinated. This guy is just this open book. He has no secrets, and I've never seen anything like this before in my life. So a couple hours into this coffee, he's telling me another sick story from his childhood, and he gets really distracted and kind of trails off. And I was like, hey, hi, what's up? He's like, oh, sorry. Reels it back in and starts telling me the story again. Again, gets super distracted, trails off. And I'm like, you seem really distracted right now. What are you thinking about? And he was like, no, don't worry about it. And I was like, no, I mean, it's fine. Obviously, what's on your mind? Why are you so distracted? And he said, do you want me to be honest? As if he hasn't been disturbingly honest up until this point. Now he wants to ask me, do you want me to be honest? I'm just like, oh, hell yeah, this has gotta be good. Finally, he said, okay, truthfully, I was thinking about wildly you. I mean, I asked. Now, I know I'm following along with where you guys probably are mentally with the story, and it's probably, now, Gab, why didn't you at this point choose to leave this date? And the answer is, I appreciated his honesty. I asked him a question, and he answered me. He told me the truth. What's worse, being a pervert or being a liar? You know what I mean? Naturally, this conversation led to the topic of sex. He started telling me some really dark stuff, like take a couple nights off of AA and go to Sexaholics Anonymous. I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, I'm just keeping it real. This guy had a problem. At one point, he told me that when he hears people having sex in a car, which I don't know how this happens to him so often, he would go up and listen to them having sex, which is creepy. Yeah, I think creepy is the word. But then he said that he got so comfortable doing that he would start walking up to the cars where he knew that people were hooking up and asking them if he could watch. What's even more surprising than this is that apparently a lot of people agreed. He did say, however, that he stopped doing that because the last time that he tried it, somebody almost killed him. So you live and you learn. Somehow, I don't remember exactly how, his sister entered this conversation, which is a weird segue to bring your sister into a conversation about your sexual deviations. So after he brings up his sister a couple times, I was like, dude, do you want to your sister? And he responded with, well, I mean, I can't pretend like I haven't dreamt about it. Don't judge me, but at this point, I'm still kind of on board because I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. You can't control your dreams and what happens in your dreams. And most of the time, dreams don't actually mean what you think they mean. For example, I think it's like if you dream that you're pregnant or somebody's having a baby, it means you're fearing death or random stuff like that. So he had some dreams about hooking up with his, I've never seen his sister. She might be a bombshell. But what I suppose caught me off guard was that he said him and his sister almost did hook up once. That's something you don't even admit to a therapist. Like, what? You take that to the grave with you when you turn 41. Now, if this trip down memory lane isn't enough, he commits the biggest normal dating faux pas of all time. He starts talking about his ex a lot, and then pretty much admits to me that they still hang out and hook up all the time. Basically, they're still completely involved, which is a really weird thing to bring up on a first date. So I'm like, okay, this clearly is not gonna turn into anything. Looking back on it is really sick that up until this point, this to me is the reason why this isn't gonna turn into anything. And then all of a sudden, after talking about his ex and how they're still involved and she's such a blah, 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 he has like this full breakdown in front of me telling me that he's such an idiot and he ruins everything and he's sabotaging himself. And he goes on to explain that the reason he's telling me about his ex is because he feels this really strong connection to me. And he can tell that I would be really good for him and that I'm a lot of fun and physically I'm everything that he's attracted to. I'm funny, interesting, and here's the best part. He called me well-adjusted. This guy is so certifiable that next to him, I look well-adjusted. And all I can think is, wow, I am so turned on right now. Seriously, this is how sick I am. But think about it. This guy has no filter. The rawness, the honesty, the vulnerability. I'm used to guys lying to me, not communicating with me, burying their emotions. This is refreshing and new and fascinating. It's fascinating. This guy has lived a very strange and interesting life. But what's cooler is he doesn't give a shit about what anybody thinks about it. This guy would never lie to me. He would never cheat on me. And what's worse, and actually pretty scary, is I'm relating to this guy. It's like every anxiety, fear, and negative thought that I've ever had is materialized in front of me, sitting across from me with an empty espresso cup in beautiful human form. Seriously, I think everybody can learn a lot from this handsome little creep. To be open, to trust one another, to not be ashamed of who we are and the baggage that we carry. As absolutely terrifyingly deranged as this guy was, it was incredibly sexy to me. But then he said something that I just wasn't sure that I would be able to get past. And I think it's pretty obvious at this point that I was willing to accept a lot. Right towards the end of the date, he asked me if I would be willing to listen to his music. How and why does every guy I go out with ask me to listen to their music? How do I find all of these struggling musicians with no talent? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll be happy to leave those videos in the description below as well. If any of you ever take me on a date, please don't ask me to listen to your music. So after 3 hours of the most insane, confusing, unreal conversation I've ever had in my life, I need to go home and pack because I'm leaving for Tokyo the next morning. He walked me to my car, told me for the millionth time that he hopes that all of this didn't scare me away, and if he could please see me when I get back from Tokyo. I agreed because honestly, like I said, I was very attracted to this insanity. That's who I am as a person. Again, I'm in therapy, don't worry. He also was like, I can't really take you out on a nice date, but would you like to come over to my place and watch a movie or something? And I said, since we're being honest, can I be honest with you? He said, of course. And I said, I feel like I would never feel safe alone in a room with you. I genuinely believe that you might murder me. And he laughed and said, I've been told that by a lot of women, actually. I land from Tokyo. I let him know that I'm back. I asked him if he'd like to make plans, and he kind of kept blowing me off. So finally I said to him, you know, it seems like you're not really that interested in me. And more or less, he completely just blew me off. He said, you're really attractive and cool. I'm just not really in a place to hang out right now. I typed that into Google Translate and it meant, it's not you, it's me. See also, letting me down gently. That's right, he rejected me. The guy who went on a rant about his ex-girlfriend on the first date turned me down. Mr. 40-year plan denied me. I got turned down by Mr. I want to f my sister. The same guy who a porn star in a Denny's bathroom deemed me unworthy of his time. The Uber driver who thinks all of his passengers are terrorists let me down gently. And that's the full story. Anyways, guys, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't checked out all of my other social media. And it's time for Showstopper of the Week. Emma! She sent me this amazing piece of fan mail. It was this scrapbook that was, you know, detailed jokes about a lot of my videos. So I know that she watches me a lot, which thank you so much. I know that she's been around for a while. I know that she's like hardcore. She wrote in her letter that she has all of my post notifications turned on. And this album just makes me smile a lot. So go show Emma some love. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for actively liking my posts on Twitter and Instagram. You know, just thanks for being a real one. As always, I love you very much and I'll see you next time. Uber everywhere.